Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Brandon Cobb, a co-founder of HBG Capital. And today we've got Cody Payne on the show. Cody is a senior vice president at Colliers, Texas, and specializes in selling flex industrial investment properties across Texas. We're going to talk more about that. Over the past 19 years, Cody and his team have closed more than 850 real estate transactions. This guy knows the ins and outs of the flex space. I'm excited to get into it with him today. Cody, welcome to the show, my friend.
Man, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. So, flex industrial space. This is a hot commodity. I hear about it more and more and more. I've seen a lot of Facebook ads. I've heard a lot of family offices and institutional money starting to invest in this asset classes. So, I definitely want to explore this with you today. Before we jump in, for those that don't know you, what's your background and story?
So I started in 2005 and actually accidentally fell into this asset class. And back then, I'm sure you probably remember it. I mean, it was a very dog. I think some people called it like the dirty fingernail commercial real estate investment is what I heard it back then. But back then it was a very raw asset class. Not as many functionalities to it. Didn't have as diverse a tenant pool. And anyways, I was selling cars, got into real estate. The guy that I was working for, he said, "Hey, go work on the small bay side. We think at some point that stuff will blow up." And lo and behold, 15 years later, it really blew up. And I think 2018 it really caught a lot of fire. 2020 caught even more. 21 and just every year since then has done very very well because of how diverse it is. But built out a great team that has been with me for a long time, and all we do is specialize in selling small bay flex industrial. We help people build it. We help funds acquire it, portfolio sell off to larger groups. We do a lot of site evaluations for people, help new developers, cross asset guys come into the airspace, and we do this all over the U.S.
What is flex industrial? When I imagine industrial, I imagine a big industrial building that a business is operating out of, usually that needs a lot of space to move equipment in and out of. It's those buildings that semi trucks back their trailer tractors up to and start unloading stuff out
Yeah.
of. That's what I traditionally think of when I hear industrial. What does the flex industrial have that's different? What's the nuance?
So there's a lot of names to it that people use, but they all mean the same thing, right? You got flex space, small bay, shallow bay, incubator. At the end of the day, they're all the same thing. And really, what that is you'll see these. They'll have a garage door on the front and a doorway. Some will have a little bit better look to it, maybe with some showroom glass. But a lot of times, what makes it flexible, I'll tell you, is the space sizes and what you can do with it. And so a lot of these are built with, suites being able to go down to, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 square feet with the ability to expand in those increments. So, a lot of times you can go into these projects and lease maybe 1,500 square feet. And as your business grows, then you can go, grow to 3,000 and, 4,500 and whatnot, whatever your increment sizes are. But they are investments that, tailor to the, general contractors, your subcontractors, your, depending on how you build it, you can get showroom, retail style tenants, and now they're even starting to acquire office tenants in some of these, depending on how you build. A lot of the new build that you'll see across the U.S. I'd probably say 80% of it's going to be metal construction that you're seeing now, just due to construction costs. But there's a lot of tilt wall stuff that's being built on it, but they're very good projects. They usually house quite a few tenants in it. It's almost like the multifamily of industrial is kind of how I like to explain it, because these parks will sometimes tend to have quite a few tenants in there.
Yeah.
We just sold a park that was a little over 200,000 feet and it had 110 tenants in it.
Wow. So you're
Yeah,
taking the building and chopping it up for different businesses, basically. And probably, if
correct.
I had to guess, you're getting a much higher per square foot rent chopping it up than if you just rented the whole thing to one person.
Well, yeah, because if you look at a big box industrial, their rates are, depending on where you're at, can be 4, 5, 6, 7, $8 a foot. And, a flex space right next door can be 12, 13, 14, 15. And so it really all depends, obviously, on location and build and everything of that nature. But
Right.
it's, they're usually heavier multi-tenanted. These things can really get a lot of amenities added onto it, but the evolution of them has really changed and expanded quite a bit over the past 4 years, especially since COVID.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So, and there's a diversification play where you don't have your one tenant leave and all of a sudden
Oh,
you don't have anything coming out. You've diversified with multiple tenants.
out of any out of any commercial real estate asset, I believe that this asset has the most diverse and largest tenant pool. And let me give you a prime example. We're selling a park out here right now. They've got light industrial, subcontractor tenants in there. They've got some showroom tile guys in there. They've got a couple retail tenants. They got a storage tenant, and they even have a couple office tenants. There's no other asset that you'll find that can tailor to all those classes.
Yeah, I can see the value in that. What what has made this space become so popular recently? I see a lot of it, and I'm imagining it like a Home Depot, right? Like Home Depot's kind of its own little businesses. Like it's got the flooring business and the millwork business, and it's got the paint and the lighting, right? You're chopping it up. It's kind of the same thing. You're renting out to multiple businesses, and so it's just seems like there's a huge play here. Why has it gotten so popular recently?
I think there's actually a lot of reasons. As far as your tenant base goes, I think a lot of the reason why it's catching retail tenants is because as online and technology continues to grow, a lot of these retail guys aren't really sole surviving on location and drive-by frontage like they used to, right? So, like for example, remember when we were kids, you would go to a retail center to go to State Farm and get insurance. It's going to be rare to find a State Farm insurance office in a retail center anymore because just nobody just drives up for insurance anymore. And so you've got the retail sector that's going through a lot of changes. The office sector obviously is going through a lot of changes as well. These are very flexible spaces for those guys, allows them to drive up capability. Obviously when you compare rents to office and retail, in many cases the flex is going to be substantially cheaper also at the same time. But your tenant pool continues to expand because another reason because of the amount of entrepreneurship that has really been crafted since 2000 or 2020, and the number of small businesses across the U.S., e-commerce, drop shipping, everything like that has helped in the explosion of the tenant base on the flex side.
Say that last part again.
The small business, I mean, because small businesses, I think, make up 60% of the U.S. employment.
Yeah, right.
So you've got that, you've got drop shipping, the evolution of e-commerce,
I was about to
and
say,
all the
was
small
Amazon
businesses.
a big part of that?
I
People
mean,
needing smaller little spots to store stuff and ship.
it did play a good part into it. It didn't just create all these new tenants, but it was a huge help. And that's also why you have, companies like Saltbox and whatnot that allow people to go in and rent just like a, 15 by 20 or 20 by 20 warehouse space. So it's a great segue from going from your home business to a smaller shop with the ability to expand it.
Okay, I see. So, yeah, I could definitely see how e-commerce is the one driving this, and I do feel like the number of small businesses is increasing versus larger with the amount of tools that have been available for small
Oh,
businesses.
and when COVID hit, the commercial kitchen side, a lot of people don't talk about that. The commercial kitchen side expanded quite a bit because people started getting food delivered to their house and things of that nature. And that is still a big part of our, economy and what people do as well. And so it's very common to see, commercial kitchens and, satellite branches and whatnot expand into these locations. And then also you take major hubs, major metros like say Houston or Dallas Fort Worth. And, when we were younger, there was a CO2 company that dispersed CO2 to restaurants that had a hub in the central DFW. Well, because of all the growth and how big it's become, they now have all these satellite branches and small flex parks all over to service the areas. And so a lot of these are also their tenant base is area servicing. So you got your landscapers, your subcontractors, builders, plumbers, all these guys needing these spaces as well.
Yeah, no, it's grown, and I can see the value in it. What do you think, in your own words, when it comes to this flex space? Why is it not as popular in the real estate investing world as some of the more alternative asset classes? Right now, it seems like multifamily is like the golden side. Everybody's doing multifamily, everybody's going after that. Flex space is something that's catching some wind. I'm hearing more about it, but why don't you think it's as popular as some of the other asset classes if somebody's going to invest in real estate in general?
Well, I think it's on a big rise, which it is. I mean, you can look at any stat of institutional ownership and where this is at. It's on a similar rise as self-storage was in the late 90s, because
Yeah.
as you recall back then, that was all mom and pop private ownerships. And now today, self-storage is heavy institutionally owned. And I think the flex space is on the exact same trajectory. You look at it for certain markets where just a few years ago it was maybe 14% institutionally owned, and now it's 26% in just a couple of years, which is a huge difference. You got Blackstone that bought billions of dollars worth it not long ago, and they continue to expand it. And so I think you see a lot more people coming into it. I think the reason they weren't initially is because of the large tenant base and how many tenants you have in those facilities. So they were thought to be a little bit more management intensive, but they're really not. We sell to multifamily investment groups all the time. They love the asset. Their managers say they don't get a single call after 5 p.m. And it's rare that they get one during the day,
Yeah.
because the tenants a lot of times take care of the spaces themselves. But there has been a huge influx in cross asset people over the past few years buying this asset, because besides self storage, I think it is the next in line that is, the second in line that is the best inflation fighter when it comes to commercial real estate investments. Because anytime you have a tenant turnover, right, you have a tenant leave, you're refinishing out a space, your TIs on small bay flex is substantially less than you'll find in a lot of times in multifamily, single family, retail, office,
Yeah.
medical office. And so that's the other reason why it's been catching a lot of steam, is because of where inflation has hurt some of the other asset classes. This one's a great fighter against it.
So, talk to me more about how it's helping fight against inflation.
So when you have, like, say you have an office building, right? And this is what's hurting the office sector big time, is when an office tenant leaves and you're trying to release it. Not only do you have a longer on market time to get a new tenant, but whenever you go to refinish out that space, prime example, building out here, just probably 4 years ago, to refinish out the space was around $15 per square foot. Today, that number is closer to $40 per square foot, and the rental rate hasn't changed. Now, on the small bay flex side, because there's such low finish out in there, when a tenant leaves, there's not, in many cases, obviously every case is different, but they have some of the lowest re-tenant finish out amongst all the asset classes. Obviously, storage is going to be number one because there's just no finish out in there. But the minimal finish out in the small bay flex allows for, when a new tenant comes in, you just don't have that turnkey turnover number that you do in a lot of other asset classes. And that's why so many people like it.
Is that because the tenants are mainly paying for the build out?
A lot of times, yes, but they're also very minimal finished out as well. So a lot of
Yeah.
the flex space that you'll see will literally be one office and a restroom and the rest warehouse.
Yeah, that's all open space. You're not
Yeah.
having to spend a lot of money. That's why I like building industrial, because it's just a concrete slab and some steel walls and a roof, man. I mean, there's not any other
These are
stuff that
very
goes into
similar.
it like
Yeah.
single family housing. So, what's the strategy with your firm? Are y'all looking for existing industrial that maybe has like one tenant and then you get rid of that and chop it up to a bunch of different tenants? Are you guys developing new? What's the
So
play?
our main forte is we specialize in selling small bay flex industrial parks. So anybody looking to buy, that's what we do. We sell them. We continue to bring awareness to the asset class. We go out, we find new family offices, institutions, real estate funds, private guys. We bring them to the asset class. It's besides multifamily, which historically is always the number one commercial real estate crossover investment class of people going to, small bay flex is right there with it. And so we continue to promote it, but our main forte is selling it on the investment side. We help people invest in it. We help funds collect these in portfolios to eventually sell off to institutions. Also on the new development side, we help people find sites, evaluate the sites, see if they're a good site for flex space, kind of figure out the design and build of what is
Okay.
maybe the best look to do there. We even have good leasing arms that can help get it leased. But we pretty much try to handle as much as we can in the entire flex space arena.
Okay. So you guys help out with the developers designing it, saying, hey,
Absolutely.
this is going to be best suit. So if you're representing a buyer that wants to go and buy some flex space, because there's a lot of real estate investors that listen to this. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that own their own business, especially in real estate. You're the buyer's agent here. You're representing the buyer. What would you advise them to look at or be aware of before making the purchase? What boxes need to get checked?
Well, anytime you're buying some, obviously, I think every asset class is the same. Location is going to be key, right? Location, market, accessibility, quality, where the rents are today, where the rents were a few years ago, where they're headed, if there's, where the value add component is, which I will tell you is still a phenomenal accessibility point in the small bay flex side, is to where, you hear a lot of people say on like maybe some of the multifamily stuff that there's not as much value add as you could find, in like 2015 or whatnot. The small bay flex side still has tremendous value add opportunity, because there are quite a few projects that we sell that have, older mom and pop private ownerships that maybe have gross leases with the ability to bump those and convert to triple net, which is huge. The triple net conversion on the small bay flex side has been doing exceptionally well over the past 3 years, which historically they were mostly gross leases.
Yeah. And for those listening that don't know what a triple net is, real quick, explain what a triple net is.
So triple net lease is where the tenants pay you back a portion of your taxes, insurance, and common area maintenance. So you're not just getting the base rent, but you're getting a portion of your expenses back, which is the most friendly lease you can get for a landlord. And historically, they were gross leases to where they just paid their base rent and that was it. But there's been a huge conversion over to triple net across the U.S. on the small bay flex side. So you can still find parks that have that conversion capability, which in many cases, just by converting to triple net, you can see 25, 30, 35% increase in revenue just off that basis alone. And so if you're buying, we look at, like I said, location, value add, where the project's headed, where maybe we can add some amenities. Amenities are getting very key on these projects. And what their long-term strategy is, if they want to hold it and keep it as an investment, or look to maybe potentially resell it in the future.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for space. And you were talking about how if you were representing a buyer as a buyer's agent, what those check boxes need to be before making a purchase, what to look at. You were talking about the location, the amenities and stuff like that.
Yeah, the value add aspect, if you're looking at keeping it as a long-term investment, if you're looking at maybe a flip sale, adding additional amenities to it, how you can improve the park, almost like any other commercial real estate investment, except, the flex side has a lot of amenities that can be added on to these parks that help them actually make quite a bit of money, obviously depending if they've got those factors to add on. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things that we look for whenever we're looking for somebody to invest in these.
Okay. So we got quite a few check boxes here. What are some of the red flags that you would be on the lookout for before
Red
making a
flags
purchase?
is going to be competition. And then, there's a lot of these being built in rural areas, which there's no issues with that. The only thing you want to keep in mind is when they're in rural areas with a lot of extra land, is they're very similar to storage and multifamily, to where competitors can, enter the market pretty easily and, build around you. And so you want to make sure that you insulate yourself as best as possible. If you're going to be around competitors, make sure you amenitize as best as possible to be the, go-to business park. We're big on branding and amenitizing flex spaces.
Well, so tell me about the amenities. What amenities are you noticing that are moving property?
The best amenity you'll find in the flex space right now is IOS attachment, industrial outdoor storage, fenced in storage yards.
Fenced-in storage, okay.
Yeah, those are like gold right now. They bring higher rates, they bring higher quality tenants, better retention. So storage yards is key. Adding storage units out there is key. Covered parking, additional parking, mezzanine space, full AC on the warehouse. Obviously, depending on location, if you're in Florida, Texas, Arizona, Georgia, AC in a warehouse is money in the bank. Especially out here in Texas where it gets 110 for a lot of the year.
Yeah.
You want that AC, and you'd be surprised how many warehouses don't have that. And so there's a lot of little amenities you can do to help the park gain a little bit more traction. Showroom glass, putting in nice showroom glass in the front of it, where your entry is, that allows your tenant base to expand a little bit more as well, to maybe get retail showroom style tenant. So it really depends on, the area is going to help drive that. But if you're building it, you want to build to have those type of amenities. And, there's several different models. You got the efficient build, which is very basic. Got the showroom model, premium. You can do the condo, which, you're seeing luxury condos, car condos and stuff built all over the place. Those are, flex space as well. So there's a lot of different models you can do. And we even see people go and buy existing flex space, convert it to condos, and sell those condos to the tenants.
Right. Condos. So they buy a big warehouse. When we say condos, you mean like individual little build outs, and then they sell pieces of the.
Yeah, just like a condo regime would be. You can build it as a condo, right? They have their own legal description, their own electric meter.
Really?
They're their own parcel. Absolutely. Have you seen like any of the like fancy car garages and stuff like that people sell? I know Garages of Texas is a big one. There's quite a bit. They're popping up everywhere. Luxury car condos. I mean, these things are becoming wildly
Interesting.
popular.
So it's kind of like a multifamily building where each person has their own kind of room, their spot on that
Yeah.
big slab in the warehouse, and you can sell off. Wow, I had no clue this was even a thing. You've got a book called Flex Parks USA, the 360 Advantage. What could people expect to find in that book? And I'm sorry, I think it's Flex Space Domination, actually.
Flex space domination. Got one coming your way. So actually, we wrote this book. I've been in the business since 2005. And our team wrote this book over the past year because we have so many people coming into this airspace. And this is a great way for people to learn about it, figure out best ways to get into it, the routes that we've seen, how we help people, get down the road to avoid certain mistakes that a lot of people see, but also because, we know who some of the best buyers are for these assets and how to build and tailor to those guys. And so that's why we did the book. It's a really good book front to back. It's got a really good action plan in there as well that kind of gets you started, what to look for, what we look for when we're helping people or we're developing a site. And so we put everything we could in there to make you as dangerous as possible in the small bay flex side.
Cool, man. Well, if people want to learn more about investing or, purchasing in the flex space, want to learn more about you and your company, where can they go?
Flexbusinessparks.com. Everything you need on the flex side will be there.
Flexbusinessparks.com. We've got it. We'll share that in the show notes here. Cody, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for coming in today.
Oh, man, I appreciate it.
And hey, if you get value from these episodes, do Cody and I a favor. Go leave us a review on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts. It allows us to get more great guests on the show like Cody and boost the overall eyeballs. Share it with your friends and family. We'll see you guys next time.